Hey, what's up, Bear fam? Let's talk about the snake diet. Steve, do you endorse the snake diet? Is the snake diet something I can try? Is it a good idea? Very quickly, the snake diet is a little bit confusing to me because it seems to be synonymous with one individual, Cole Robinson, who changes their opinions on what is nutritionally a good idea almost every week. I watched one video of his where he was recommending that people cut out fiber from their diet, which to me seems like a pretty terrible decision, and lo and behold, a week later he was telling people that indeed carbohydrates are perfectly fine to include if you are already lean. I'm not sure what his rationale was for that, and it seems pretty obvious to me that he doesn't really have any scientific training or know specifically what he's talking about. What he does seem to be really good at is he has a great gift of the gab. He can encourage people. People seem to like his brand of crude humor. And that's great because a big part of becoming healthy is finding yourself a part of a community that can encourage you to do that on a consistent basis. And that's undoubtedly what I'm trying to do here with Bevolution Positivity. But they do have some recommendations that they do seem to be consistent on. They're very simple, which is that you need to stop eating right now. If you're overweight and you want to lose some weight, just simply stop eating right now for as long as you can, quote unquote, until you feel like death. Certainly don't recommend this. I think that's a really stupid recommendation to make. One, because if you cut weight like that, it's just called crash dieting. It doesn't matter whether it's going to be prolonged fasting or anything else. There's nothing magical about your caloric intake hitting 0 versus your caloric intake hitting 300 calories a day or 400 or 500. It's just that when you're at 0, you're guaranteed to be in a deficit, and so you will absolutely lose weight. Now, the thing about losing weight, one thing that I'm very big about in the Bevolution Positivity community is that losing weight should not be your focus. Losing fat should be your focus, because it's very easy to get people to lose weight where a whole bunch of that weight loss is lean body mass. And so that's things like muscle. That's also things like how big your heart is, how big your liver is, and your kidney. These things actually, those organs make up the bulk, as well as your brain, of your basal metabolic rate. So when you are not expending any energy at all and you just lay there still, you still have to pump all those organs. They still need to work, and that makes up your basal metabolic rate. And your body, when you crash diet like this, when you restrict calories that hard, you're actually going to shrink your organs. And that's for two reasons. One, your body is adapting. It's like switching your car into eco mode, right? It wants to survive on the fuel that it has for as long as possible. It's exactly what bears do in winter. They'll turn their metabolism right down so they can very slowly eat their fat for the winter so that they can survive and get back into putting all that weight back on in the summer. And that's a big key that we have right there, which is that essentially fat on your body, Cole Robinson is right, fat on your body is food. That is the purpose. That is why we as primates are very rare in the sense that we have this capability to store a whole bunch of fat on our bodies, and that absolutely is food for later. But what Cole doesn't understand, and what the snake diet doesn't really seem to want to educate people about, is the fact that fat is a response to trauma. So if you want a kid to have an increased propensity towards obesity, then all you need to do is, while that kid is in the second trimester of the womb, you need to starve them of calories. So the mother just needs to go on some sort of weight loss program, a calorie restriction program. What that will do is, because our bodies are always listening to our environment, it's the exact same thing as if you had a kid and you physically abused him, or you were angry at him, or you were constantly shouting at that kid. That kid is going to grow up to be an abusive, angry individual, because that's the environment that they think they're in, and that's the best strategy for them to deal with. When you calorically restrict while your baby is in the second trimester, that's the time when your baby listens, the fetus listens and says, okay, I'm coming out into an environment of scarcity. And so its response is that whenever there is food available, their appetite hormones, their satiation hormones are all regulated in such a way so they can eat as much food as possible, and their metabolism adjusted, and their exercise expenditure, their desire to burn a lot of calories in terms of their exercise, is also adjusted, so they don't feel like moving very much, but they feel like eating as much as possible. And those kids all have a propensity towards obesity. So that's the Dutch hunger winter study, if you want to have a look at that. Really fascinating. And so what this means then is that when it comes to prolonged fasting, with people using a strategy where they want to lose weight very quickly and you're going to go on a prolonged fast, effectively you're exposing yourself to trauma. Okay, so you've got a lot of fat on your body, but what is fat? Fat is famine insurance. Okay, one day I'll sit down and I'll think up an acronym for fat that fits that concept, but for now it's famine insurance. Okay, which means that there's a famine that your body thinks is coming. And the degree to which your body thinks the famine is coming is the degree to which your body will be comfortable to set your body weight at. This is why some people just sort of don't count their calories at all and they stay very slim. This is why other people don't count their calories at all and they can balloon up to these pretty big weights. Now, I'm going to have some videos about like macronutrient balancing on how you can eat in such a way that you can actually find out what your set point weight is. And then the next step is to eventually coach your body into lowering its set point weight. That is not going to happen if you are on a prolonged fasting protocol, because you're exposing your body to more trauma. You're essentially exposing your body to a massive famine. And so as soon as that famine is over, the body is going to be like, oh, okay, crap. That was hectic. That was really stressful. We now need to get back to putting that fat on so that the next time this kind of famine happens, right? If you do what he recommends, where he's just fasting as long as you can fast for months. If you're fat enough, you can literally go for months if you want to. So say you do like a 30-day fast. That's a long time to be in an environment with no food. And that's going to send signals to your body that are going to say, hey, we need to survive these long periods without food. And so as a result, your set point weight is going to go up. If you actually want to burn fat and lower your set point weight, where you can just eat intuitively and keep that weight off, you don't want to be doing extended periods of fasting. What you want to do is actually do the exact same thing that you would if you had that angry, abusive person. You can take an angry, abusive person and make them kind. You can take that angry, abusive person and make them benevolent and understanding and cooperative with other people, but you need to do it slowly. Now, and I'm not saying then that you want to go on tiny caloric deficits, because that's been shown with Weight Watchers, right? You still balloon back from that, because effectively you're still putting yourself in a famine for a long period of time. The real way, if you want to lower your set point weight and you want to get your body comfortable at a low body fat percentage, is you need to expose yourself to tiny periods of famine. So you need to basically re-educate your body on how long those famines actually last. And then your body listens to that and it says, oh, okay, so the kind of famine trauma that we go through here, in whatever environment Steve is in, is one where maybe food is severely absent for maybe a day. Or maybe it's 2 days. And then he finds food and he finds a whole abundance of it again. And so the more times you do that, where you switch between abundant eating and then short periods of famine, your body will eventually become more comfortable with lowering your body fat percentage. And if you add some exercise in there as well, then that's going to help facilitate that process. That's the best way to do it. Unfortunately, the snake diet will recommend that you basically will try to burn all your fat by going for a famine, by starving yourself, by going on a fast for as long as possible, and then having a tiny little refeed, where you just have a tiny little bit of food to psychologically help yourself so you can go back in and fast for as long as you can. Guaranteed 100% of the time, unless you're some sort of strange anomaly, you will lose a whole bunch of weight, but you will metabolically adapt. And so if you're overweight enough, if you're like maybe 300, 350 pounds, what you'll find is you'll find yourself stalling probably around that 200, 220 pound mark, where you're going to find that if you eat over 500 or 600 calories a day, you start to put weight back on. And your body's really going to be fighting this because it's just too much trauma. It's just too much trauma to deal with at once. And your body's just going to want to get right back up to the weight that it was before you started. So if you want to stop that from happening, don't have tiny little refeeds and don't fast for long periods of time. You need to understand from your body's point of view. Okay, great thinkers can't just think about, if I do A, then I get B. You need to understand that the body is listening. The body is always listening and trying to prepare. Okay, this is why chewing gum isn't a good idea. Why? Because your body listens. Your body's like, oh, I'm chewing food, so food is now coming. This is why people can get acid reflux if they're preparing food for their family, and even if they're not planning on eating themselves, they can still get acid reflux. Why? Because the body is always listening and preparing for what it thinks is coming next. If you expose yourself to environments where you were just fasting for an extended period of time, it doesn't matter if you're taking electrolyte supplements while you're doing it. Doesn't matter. You're going to lose weight very quickly, you're going to metabolically adapt, and then you're going to bounce back to probably 50, 60, 70% of what you started with. The best approach is one in which you understand that fat is famine insurance, and if you want to get comfortable at a low body fat, you need to teach your body that famines are short and quick, and you're right back in to eating an abundance of food. I'll talk to you guys soon.